Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is January the 30th, 2024, and we are taking a look at the biblical Passover that was given to Moses. We left off, we were in the book of Matthew, and we were going to go into the day of the 10th, what happened on the 10th of the month. We're change of plans. We're going to review what we just looked at, but we're going to be taking a look at it in the book of Mark. So, plot to kill Jesus. After 2 days, this just repeats what was said in Matthew. Was the Passover, and of unleavened bread. And the chief priests and the scribes sought how they might take him by craft and put him to death. But they said, not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar of the people, because it was the day before the feast. Jesus was anointed at Bethany. We read that. I don't think there's many changes in that, so we won't read that again. Judas to betray Jesus. I don't remember, so let's read it. And Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went into the chief priests to betray him unto them. And when they heard it, they were glad and promised to give him money. And he sought how he might conveniently betray him. Passover with the disciples, that's not yet. We have to go backwards in order to move forward. So Mark 11, the triumphal entry. Let's read through this. I don't recall if there's any changes or differences. And when they came nigh to Jerusalem unto Bethpage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, he sending forth two of his disciples, and said unto them, he sendeth forth two of his disciples, and saith unto them, Go your way into the village over against you, and as soon as you be entered into it, ye shall find a colt. Okay, there is a difference, but I didn't look at that, so we'll skip through this. I didn't look at the colt. And they said unto them, even as Jesus has commanded, and they let him go. Well, and a certain of them that stood there said unto them, What do ye loosening this colt? And they said unto them, even as Jesus had commanded, and they let them go. And they brought the colt to Jesus, and cast their garments on him, and he sat upon him. And many spread their garments in the way, and others cut down branches off the trees, and strawed them in the way. And they that went before and they that followed cried, saying, Hosanna, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. We'll have to come back to that. Blessed be the kingdom of our father David that cometh in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. And Jesus entered into Jerusalem, into the temple, and when he had looked round about upon all things, and now the eventide was come, he went out unto Bethany with the 12. This again, he did not leave Jerusalem, but I did keep that it was even, and that it was time for lunch, or high noon, and that is where I began the next day. Okay, so his triumphal entry, and Jesus cleanses the temple. Oh, we forgot to read, he cursed the fig tree. That came first before his triumphal entry. Let's read this. And on the morrow, when they were come, this is at the beginning of the morning of the night, as opposed to the evening. It's evening, then morning. Hold on, there's another train. Okay, I highlighted it green because it's out of order. And on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, he came, if haply he might find anything thereon. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet. And Jesus answered and said unto it, No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And his disciples heard it. Hey, I've compiled a few scriptures, enough to do another equinox video. But you know, for the life of me, my spirit tells me that you guys are still doubting the fig tree. I just don't get it. I just want you to just pretend, just in your mind, compile an answer for me, because you can't tell me. Just compile an answer for me. How do you get a fig tree to grow out of season? Any plant. Tell me how you can get any plant to grow outside, because we know you can put them in a controlled environment, out of season. Here you have a full tree, full of leaves. Oh, I know. Okay, you know what? I just thought of how I could teach you guys this. Forget what I just said. Wait for the equinox video. There's additional information I want to tell you about figs, because they're lying in Google. In Google, I can't wait. I can't wait. In Google, I was looking up something about fig trees in Google. I don't want to lie on Google because I don't remember exactly what it says. But it was teaching, when I glanced at it, it was teaching that fig trees grow in the springtime, March, April, I can't remember exactly. That's not true. All fig trees blossom in November. Hold on. There's some heirloom figs. I remember about 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago, I was in one of the health food stores in the summertime, and there were these two different kinds of heirloom figs. One was candy cane, another one was something else. I was so happy to see a fig in the summertime, I hurried up and snatched it up. They taste like figs. But those figs, the normal figs that you buy in the store, they all blossom in November. And then they dry them and sell them throughout the year. That's why it's hard to get a fresh fig, unless you live somewhere where they grow. Well, it's hard to get them anyway because they all blossom in November. But when I looked in Google, it gave a different month. It gave a different month. And also, another thing, if you look, I'll just save that for the equinox videos because I'm trying to give you equinox stuff now. But, yeah. Even though you can't answer me, explain to yourself as though you're explaining to me, how do you get a tree to grow out of season? It's a lie. It's not true. It was the season for figs. If it wasn't, what was the point of putting it in there? I mean, don't they tell you that this was around the time of the Passover, when figs are supposed to be growing in the spring? And look, I'm sure it said April. If figs grow in April, then what was the point of putting this in here? Figs only grow in November. They all grow at the same time. And they come to, so this was, we got off track there. This was at the beginning of the morning of the 9th. And then after he cursed the fig tree, let me show you the chart because I can't recall if I've shown it to you on this video or not. So let's look at this chart real quick. So the first was the plot to kill Jesus. Then he had dinner with Lazarus. All of this happened in the evening because the evening comes first in the morning. Jesus was anointed and Judas betrayed Jesus. Made a plan to betray Jesus. Then, in the morning time, he cursed the fig tree. He had a triumphal entry. The people sang Hosea at his coming. He cleansed the temple. And now we need to look at cleansing the temple, and his authority is challenged. And then they come to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, Is it not written, My house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves? Okay, so I was originally correct because it uses the word taught here because he's correcting the people. So it was because of his actions here, but other things as well probably. He was probably in there and teaching a lot of stuff. And And the scribes and the chief priests heard it and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him because of all the people, because all the people was astonished at his doctrine. And when even was come, he went out of the city. Again, this is not correct, but I kept it because it identifies the beginning of the next day. Okay, he just didn't leave the city. The lesson of the fig tree would have happened at the time that the fig tree was cursed. They just broke it into two. We'll look at this really quick. And in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. This didn't happen. He would have saw it dried up. Well, this would have happened. But it would have happened at that moment. And Peter, calling to remembrance, and Peter saith unto him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou cursed is withered away. And Jesus answering said unto him, Have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye have received them. Believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. And when ye stand praying, forgive, if ye have aught against any, that your Father also which is in heaven may forgive you for your trespasses. But if ye do not forgive, neither will your Father which is in heaven forgive your trespasses. And then the authority is challenged. This would have come directly after this, after he cleansed the temple. And they come, I don't think I have to read this. I didn't mark anything on it. Let's read it again because I just got tired. And they come again to Jerusalem, and as he was walking in the temple, there come to him the chief priests and the scribes and the elders, and saying to him, By what authority dost thou these things? And who gave thee this authority to do these things? And Jesus answered and said unto them, I will also ask of you one question, and answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, was it from heaven or of men? Answer me. And they reasoned with themselves, saying, If we shall say from heaven, he will say, Why then did ye not believe him? But if we shall say of men, they feared the people, for all men counted John, that he was a prophet indeed. And they answered and said unto Jesus, We cannot tell. And Jesus answering said unto them, Neither do I tell you by what authority I do these things. I was going to come here to show you the them praising on the 9th. Let's just go ahead and look at it. It's probably not going to mean that much to you, because you're really not going to understand the reason, because I haven't gone into the reasons yet. But remember I was saying how they were singing Hosanna in the highest and this, that, and the other? There's two illustrations of it. Exodus 12 is very mixed up. It's hard to see what's going on from here. This is why we had such a hard problem, why it was so difficult when we started off in the Old Testament. But they left bits and pieces in the Old Testament, so that when you compare it to the New Testament, you can go back to the Old Testament and see what really was happening. They just added so many lies in there that you just can't make it out on your own. Speak ye unto the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the house will be, we don't need that. The lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out of the house, out from the sheep, from your goats. It had to be a sheep. It did not come from their house. It was the temple's responsibility in order to provide this lamb. I'll talk about more about that later. When you see the word congregation here, this is speaking prophetically or spiritually, however you want to interpret it, of everyone, both the Jews and the nations combined. So when you're looking at a prophecy and you see that 5712 in the Old Testament, you'll know that this is a prophecy that is going to involve both us and after the millennium, when the nations come in. When you see the assembly, this word right here, 6951, this is just us. It's only speaking about us. The assembly of the congregation is talking about the elite or the elders, however you want. It's not elite. I don't like the word. The elders. So, and you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. This is just us. This is about everyone. So this is going to affect everyone, but only the assembly are going to be responsible for killing it. So let's just jump down to the end. And this is what happens when they receive the lamb. Then Moses called for all the elders, because it's the elders' responsibility, remember, of Israel, and said unto them, draw out. This word here. Now, if you've been with me for a while, we've already gone over this once. When I first read this, I thought they were parading the animal from door to door. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And it didn't make a whole lot of sense, because when it says to draw out, hold on, to draw, to drag, to seize, to drag, to lead along, drag or lead off. It was as though they were leading the animal from door to door, parading him around. No, they do parade him around. That's true. That's exactly what was happening, because this is a picture of Jesus's triumphal entry, where they walk the lamb through the people, and the people praise the lamb and humble themselves to it as a sense of gratitude. So it says to draw out and take you a lamb according to your families. We have one family. Well, two. It's going to be kind of two. You can say the house of Israel and then the other nations. So according to your families, but it's one. One family, the saints. And kill the Passover. This is where they paraded the animal for his triumphal entry. So here. No, we don't. None of that happened. Wait a second. I don't know if that happened or not. But, I mean, it didn't happen. It's about, that part is about the Passover. We're looking at the Passover lamb right now. Hezekiah. Okay, it's going to take a minute to read through this, though. All right, let's just get to it. He in the first year, this is Hezekiah reigns in Judah. He in the first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of the Lord and repaired them. And he brought in the priests and the Levites and gathered them together unto the east street, and said unto them, hear me, ye Levites, sanctify now yourselves, and sanctify the house of the Lord God of your fathers, and carry forth the filthiness out of this holy place. For our fathers have trespassed and done that which is evil in the eyes of the Lord our God, and have forsaken him, and have turned away their faces from the habitation of the Lord, and turned their backs. And they have shut up the doors of the porch, and put out the lamps, and have not burned incense, nor offered burnt offerings in the holy place unto the God of Israel. Wherefore the wrath of the Lord was great upon Judah and Jerusalem, and hath delivered them to trouble, to astonishment, and to hissing, as ye see with your eyes. For lo, our fathers have fallen by the sword, and our sons and our daughters and our wives are in captivity for this.
'Cause I don't know if they have it or not, but I mean, it didn't happen. It's about that part is about the Passover, not we're looking at the
Now it is in mine heart to make a covenant with the Lord God of Israel, that his fierce wrath may turn away from us. My son, be not now negligent, for the Lord has chosen you to stand before him, to serve him, and that ye should minister unto him and burn incense. Then the Levites, I think it said he was speaking with the high priest. Oh, all of them, okay. My sons, be not now negligent, for the Lord has chosen you to stand before him to serve him, that ye should minister unto him and burn incense. Then the Levites arose, Mahath the son of Amasiah, I don't know what that is, and Joel of the son of Azarah, of the son of the Kohathites, and of the sons of Merari, Kish the son of Abidai, and Azariah the son of Jehaleleel, and of Gershonites, Joah the son of Zimeah, and Eden the son of Joah. And of the sons of Elizaphan, Okay, let's just skip all of this. And they gathered their brethren and sanctified themselves, and came according to the command of the king of the words of the Lord, to cleanse the house of the Lord. This is the part, if I should have marked it, we could have just jumped right down here. Okay, good. We don't have a whole lot. Well, we do, because we have to read through pretty much all of this. And the priests went to the inner part of the house of the Lord, and cleansed it, and brought out all of the uncleanliness that they found in the temple of the Lord into the court of the house of the Lord. And the Levites took it and carried it out abroad into the brook Kindred. A whole lot of stuff went into that brook. That must have been the dumpster, because they keep throwing stuff in the brook of Kindred. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month came they to the porch of the Lord. So they sanctified the house of the Lord in 8 days, and in the 16th day of the first month they made an end. Now I can't remember exactly how I came to see this. I do remember that I had to read all the way down to the end before I saw something that was repeated. And when I saw it was repeated, I had to go back up. And I was like, wait a second. Why are they repeating this over? This is something we already know. Etc., etc. And that's when I started going over with a fine-tooth comb. Let's read this again, because this is going to give us the exact days that the Feast of Unleavened Bread is in. I questioned myself time and time again about this week. It's such a big change. Then I thought, well, maybe it's supposed to be this day, or maybe it's supposed to be that day, etc., etc. However, in there, they were so anxious to hide the actual days that they actually reveal it here. Just a moment. Okay, they were so anxious to hide the days that they actually reveal the days in this sentence. Let's read it again. Now they begin on the first day of the month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month came they to the porch. Hold on. Okay. So they began on the first day of the month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month came they to the porch. Now, if they were done on the 8th day, why then would they not make sure everything was finished by the 14th day? I was reading, and I remember, I read this so long ago, but I do remember that I convinced myself, because I thought to myself, what could possibly have kept them from finishing in time for the 14th? I would still believe in that. It was on the 14th then. What could possibly have kept them from finishing on the 14th? And what I convinced myself of was when it said they prepared the vessels that were in the king's, hold on, because they had cleansed it. Moreover, the vessels which King Ahaz in his reign did cast away in his transgression have we prepared and sanctified, and behold, they are before the altar of the Lord. I convinced myself that in order to prepare these vessels, maybe there was some mending or something that had to be done where it required time to dry the vessels, or something that needed to be done in order to prepare those vessels, or repair them, needed a time span of days or whatever to dry, as opposed to a work of cleaning the temple. That was the conclusion that I came to so long ago, which is why I was able to ignore these words here. It says, they began on the first day of the month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month they came to the porch of the Lord. So they sanctified the house of the Lord in 8 days. In 8 days it was cleansed. So why then? And in the 16th day of the first month they made an end. Why then did they do this? They did this because the person that wrote this knew that the very last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread was the 15th. And they wanted to make sure that under no circumstances could you confuse the lies that they're going to tell in the next chapter, that the Passover was actually done in the second month. They wanted to make sure that you understood that there was no chance that they could do it in the first month, when in actuality they did. It was all done in the first month. And the days that it was done was from the 9th to the 15th, because they stopped on the 8th. On the 8th day, they finished the work of the house of the Lord. They celebrated from the 9th to the 15th, but they didn't want, they couldn't rest easy with those days just be floating, with those days, those days just floating out there. So they said on the 16th day of the first month it was finished. They just lied. They just lied. They celebrated this on the first month. Those letters went out before they began the work so that the people could show up on the first month. The next book, the next chapter is so riddled with lies, I could not read it and prepare for this video. We might go back and read it at a later time, but it has so many lies in it, I just could not do it. So let's look at this, because this has the triumphal entry in it as well. Okay. None of these sacrifices was done, let me just tell you. It just wears me out just looking at them, just thinking about reading them. I'll explain more about that later. Then Hezekiah the king rose early and gathered. Wait a second. Hold on a second. None of the sacrifices were commanded. Where it says he offered them as an offering, those sacrifices were done. Then Hezekiah the king rose early and gathered the rulers of the city and went up to the house of the Lord. And they brought 7 bullocks and 7 rams and 7 lambs and 7 he-goats for sin offerings. Them in this 7, there's no such thing as a sin offering. You cannot make an offering for sin. It's not real. For the kingdom, 7 he-goats for a sin offering for the kingdom and for the sanctuary and for Judah. And he commanded the priests, the sons of Aaron, to offer them on the altar of the Lord. So they killed the bullocks, and the priests received the blood and sprinkled it on the altar. No, they didn't. Since we are supposed to be, since I'm trying to get you all on the same page as me, you guys know I've been working on blood. I don't have an understanding of blood. But even, okay, I did have, hold on. Blood, here, I don't have a clear understanding of blood. But even when I did the last video, I kind of understood that blood means uncleanness. There's something unclean about blood. Okay? Yes, Saul overdid it. He overdid it. He tried to make it into a death penalty. So he did overdo it a little bit. Uncleanness is not a penalty of death. But they were out there killing people. I can't explain it. That's why I didn't mention it before. Let me just say it like this. Blood has something to do with uncleanness. That's what I know until I have a chance to look into it more. Okay? Because I want us to get on the same page. But as I look into it more, then I'll say more about it. So they killed the bullocks, and the priest received the blood and sprinkled it on the altar. Likewise, when they had killed the rams, they sprinkled the blood upon the altar. They killed also the lambs, and they sprinkled the blood upon the altar. And they brought forth the he-goats for the sin offering before the king and the congregation. And they laid their hands upon them. You think all of those hundreds of thousands of people laid their hand upon that goat? It's ridiculousness. It's utter ridiculousness. And the priest killed them and made reconciliation with their blood upon the altar to make an atonement for all Israel. For the king commanded that the burnt offering and the sin offering should be made for all Israel. Can't command that. You cannot command an offering. You cannot. Has to be a free will offering. And he set the Levites in the house of the Lord with cymbals and psalteries. Here's the part that we're reading all of this for. And he set the Levites in the house of the Lord with cymbals and with psalteries and with harps, according to the commandment of David and of Gad the king's seer and Nathan the prophet, for so was the command of the Lord by the prophets. If you see, a seer is not a gift of the Spirit. This is wickedness. This is what they have. This is what the wicked have. They have seers. Whenever you see it, just know it was put in there by your enemy, by God's enemies. It's not real. David did not have a seer. Whenever you see it, it's a lie. This is not a gift of the Spirit. And the Levites stood with the instruments of David. Hold on. For so was the commandment of the Lord by the prophets. Oh, I put this in here because to show you that this was commanded as part of the ceremony. This was commanded as part of that day. No, not. Wait a second. Well, maybe. This is the spiritual day of atonement. So maybe it was commanded as part of this day as well. And the Levites stood with instruments of David, and the priests with the trumpets. And Hezekiah commanded to offer the burnt offering upon the altar. And when the burnt offering began, the song of the Lord began also with the trumpets and with the instruments ordained by David, king of Israel. And all the congregation worshipped, and singers sang, and the trumpeters sounded off. And all this continued until the burnt offering was finished. I'm not sure why I highlighted this, but let's unhighlight it because I'm not really sure what was wrong. I think that actually looks pretty good to me. And all the congregation worshipped, and the singers sang, and the trumpeters sounded, and all this continued until the burnt offering was finished. Except maybe those trumpeters. I don't know. If it was just music, it was okay. And when they had made an end of offering, the king and all that were present with him bowed themselves and worshipped. Let me just say this now, because I've already said over and over that this is the spiritual day of atonement. The reason why I struggled with seeing the picture was because I had the wrong definition of fasting Fasting just means to humble yourself. And I know that there are people out there that teach it, and believe you me, once I figured it out the hard way, they all start coming into my mind. All those videos I had seen where they said fasting doesn't mean that you have to fast. But I was not hearing it. I was having no part of it. The spiritual picture doesn't work unless you have the proper understanding of fasting. And it is not to not eat food. It is to humble yourself. And you see, I put a scripture in here, I believe I did, where it says they bowed themselves down to worship. They bowed themselves down to the earth. They humbled themselves. All of this, when we looked at Ezekiel 9 and it said sighing and crying and this, that, and the other, and being sad and mournful, that's not the Day of Atonement. It's either after the Day of Atonement or before. I don't know. I don't remember. It has nothing to do with the Day of Atonement. You humble yourself in the Day of Atonement. Moreover, Hezekiah the king and the princes commanded the Levites to sing unto the Lord with the words, David and Asaph, the seer. No seers, that's an error. And they sang praises with gladness, and they bowed their heads and worship. And they bowed their heads and worship. They humbled themselves. Okay, so we're at 36 minutes. We have to work quickly to get back. And Moses made haste and bowed his head toward the earth and worshipped. I'm not going to read this. You can read this on your own. Isaiah 58:3, where it talks about fasting. I'll leave it here so you can pause it if you want to. Okay, so we're at Luke for the triumphal entry. We need to go back. And where did we stop? We didn't get very far. Can't remember. Okay, well, we must have stopped at, okay, we did Jesus' authority challenge. So when we come back, we'll pick back up and take a look at what Luke has to say about those days. I will talk with you in the next video.